Welcome, everybody, to the Contextual Christian Church Bible Study, where today we'll be getting into 1 Chronicles chapter 5, verse 23, to chapter 6, verse 10. And I'll go ahead and pray us in. Everybody bow your heads. Father, thank you for this time we've been able to read and be able to study. Thank you for this time of fellowship that we have together. Though we do wish that we were able to be there in person, but you've called us to be in the positions that we're in at this time. And so we just pray in the future that we can build such a way that we're able to have that local church and that we're able to have multiple locations for people to follow and to have available for them. And as we go to read today, we just pray to do a better job understanding than we have in the past and taking the time and being patient to make sure we actually are reading what we're reading so we don't jump and make mistakes. In your son's holy and precious name, Jesus Christ Yeshua. Amen. So last time, what we had gone through, we had started in verse 15. Well, no, in verse 10 and gone through verse 23. But we started off with at the time where they were at war, where Saul was making war with the Hagarites, the very first king of David. So we're talking about that time is what we were reading of. We had the people from the tribe of Gad who were basically taking over. Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh were taking over these areas. But we started off in verse 12 and 13 talking about the children of Abihail and about not just his children, but also about his lineage, who his fathers were, going all the way back to the son to Guni, the chief of the house of their fathers. And then it brought up about them living over in Gilead in Bashan. And then we talked about afterwards how the half tribe of Manasseh, Reuben, and the Gadites, how they were warriors. And they had a bunch of people that were warriors, 44,760 warriors. And they made war with the Hagarites, with Yetur, Nephish, and Nodab. And so we're going down the list of that, and we continued in verse 20, where they were helped against them, and the Hagarites were delivered into their hands by God because they finally actually showed the trust in God they had. So God took care of them. And the last thing we ended with was that this group of these 2.5 tribes basically took over the area, took thousands of their cattle and things and men, and then they lived in the area until the captivity. Now, we weren't specified of which captivity, but we do know from biblical history that there was multiple times that the children of Israel were captive. So maybe it's just talking about the first one, but we don't have that information at the moment. So now I'm going to go ahead and continue today with 1 Chronicles chapter 5, verse 23 to chapter 6 in verse 1. I'll give everybody a second to get there. All right. And the children of the half tribe of Manasseh dwelt in the land, and they increased from Bashan to Baal Hermon and Senir, and unto Mount Hermon. And these were the heads of the house of their fathers, even Epher, and Ishi, and Eliel, and Azriel, and Jeremiah, and Hodavia. That sounds more Russian than Jewish, but okay. Chodavia, and Yachdiel, mighty men of valor, famous men, and heads of the houses of their and the heads of the house of their fathers. And they transgressed against the God of their fathers, and went whoring after the gods of the people of the land, whom God destroyed before them. And the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, king of Assyria, and the spirit of Tilgath-Pineser, king of Assyria. And he carried them away, even the Reubenites and the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh, and brought them unto Chalah, and Chabor, and Hara, and to the river Gozan unto this day. The sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Now, we read about the king of Assyria, first about Pul and about Tilgath-Pineser. Now, Charles, do you remember what we read about them?
In Kings, not exactly where, but just in Kings.
Yeah, but was it towards the end or was it towards the beginning?
Till Tilgath-Pilnetzer towards the end with Tilgath-Pilnetzer.
You sure about that? Chris, I'll give you the chance.
Repeat the question.
Do you remember was when we read about the captivity that Tilgath-Pileser, when we read about his name, do you remember, was that towards the beginning of Kings or was that towards the end?
I actually don't remember exactly.
All right. Let's get a little bit, because from my remembrance, it's closer to the end. So give me a second. I think Charles might be right, but I wanted to double check that. He sounded unsure, so I didn't want to go through that. So give me 1 second. But in the meantime, while I'm looking this up, it goes into show why we can't just assume which one it actually is. Because as we go through this, as I'm looking towards it, we have where it actually shows it at the end. H4807. All right. H4807. Oh, did I go the wrong one? I think I typed it in wrong. Never mind. Hold on. Illness. Spelled it wrong. That's why. Oh, this is the first time we actually hear that name. Could have sworn we heard it before.
When I typed in H8407 on the search bar, it's 2 Kings chapter 15, 2 Kings chapter 16 twice.
2 Kings chapter 15, you said?
Yeah, because I typed in H8407
Yeah.
and it's Tilgath-Pilnetzer. Yeah, 2 Kings chapter 15, verse 29, and then again twice in 2 Kings chapter 16. Because I remember we heard the name before Chronicles. When I first typed it in, I was like, it can't just only
There it
be
is. There it
Chronicles.
is. Yeah. So in the days of Pekah, king of Israel, came Tilgath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and took Ayon. Eon. So yeah, this is one of the later ones where we had the captivity. If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure this is the one where God had completely abandoned the children of Israel, finally like disowned them type level.
I don't remember, but isn't that around the end of 2 Kings?
It is. And Second Kings only has 25 chapters.
Yeah, so
So
it
it
was okay.
so when we're in chapter 15 with that, so it is possible it's part of that lead up to it, but at the moment I don't remember. But let's just say it is a possibility because it's not all the way at the end of the chapter. It's likely it's not talking about that one. So the captivity is just specifying the captivity of them. not the captivity of the entire children of Israel, as we saw at the end and saw in other times. So in this section of what I read, we're going down into the information of the tribe of Manasseh and how all the families that they increased once they got to Baal Hermon and Sanir, even unto the Mount Hermon. And so the houses of their tribes were these people that were listed in 24. But then it pointed out in 25 how they transgressed against the God of their fathers. So they went against and they sinned against God by following after, seeking after other gods of the people in the land instead of following the one true God. And notice in 26 how it puts it out. It doesn't say that the king of Syria just wanted to take over. How does it phrase it if you were to phrase it today, Chris, in verse 26?
Give me 1 second.
Not a
You
problem.
said how to phrase it as them taking over, or just repeat
I
the
said
question real quick?
I said it did not just say it like, oh yeah, they just felt like taking over. The way it phrases it, how would you reword that in today's day and age? And what lesson could be given off of that? The very beginning of 26.
Um, I would say I'm not 100% sure how to put it.
All right. Charles?
God allowed, well, no, I'll say this: God lifted up or set up the Assyrians to be in a position to take over. How you brought up the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the Manasseh. And a lesson I'm thinking about and taking into that is God doesn't just lift up his own people, he will lift up others that don't follow his will, his way. And when he does lift those others up, not in a form of lifting up evil people just to be evil, but to punish those who go against God's word, punish those who um, are not living up to God's measures. There's another way I could say it too. I'm thinking about right now.
Good, but how could you make that lesson more personal? Let's give Chris that chance. Taking what Charles just said, because he was right, but make the lesson a more personal lesson today.
Um, you mean as far as you like what like why say how do I say this oh, that person should be punished, or let's say you encounter somebody and you're like, why did I encounter them? And then you should look at it as the lesson of you should have followed more, or that person was put into your life for you to learn a certain lesson to you, for you to walk the right way next time.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
That's good. I know you were trying to figure out how to phrase it, but you did it perfectly. So, exactly. Let's say somebody comes into your life and is nothing but problems for you. What's our first instinct? Our first instinct is to sit here like, man, what the frick is wrong with that person? Why are they doing me like this? Why are they doing wrong by me like this? I ain't even do wrong by them half the time in the situations. But we're always thinking about it as a why me, poor me type thing. That's the first instinct. When in reality, that person is only in front of you because God put them there. We always like to talk about God in control when it's in a grandiose way, when it's in a massive way, like you get in a car accident, well, God is in control. You get things that are outside of your God is in your control. Look, very rarely do we think about the person who just gets on your nerves. Very rarely do we think about the job employer who isn't giving you a real chance to be successful and then complains. Very rarely do we think about it as the coworker who doesn't even deserve the job, yet is in a higher position than us. And we forget, just like Jesus told Pilate, you wouldn't even be in this position if my Father had not established you so. But it's not just in the big areas, it's in the small ones too. Bottom line is, if everything is in God's control, it's not just the big stuff, it's the little stuff too. And it's not just the big pieces of authority over your life, it's the little ones too. And we got to keep that in mind. And then I finished out with verse 1 of chapter 6, where now we finished up with the tribe of Reuben and we're going to the tribe of Levi. Now, Charles, what is special about the tribe of Levi?
They were the tribe of the priests. They were the tribes that dealt with all the things of priesthood, all the things of the house of the Lord. They were also the tribe, man. It's on the tip of my tongue, man. It's man, I don't want to just guess something like that though. It's something that it's something specific with God though.
They were the tribe that God chose to himself.
There we go.
While the other tribes got an inheritance in Israel, they didn't get an inheritance because they were God's inheritance.
That's there it is.
So, yeah, good. All right, then go ahead, Chris, when you're ready. You said what?
I said, can you say that again? You said there were inheritances of God.
So the tribe of Levi, when they got to the promised land, every other tribe got an inheritance of the land, except for the tribe of Levi. They were left out because the tribe of Levi were God's inheritance. They were the tribe that he chose for himself.
Oh, okay, now I get what you're saying.
So it's like the priesthood, like, you know that in biblical times, you probably know this even without being part of the church all the time, in the past, you probably know that priests don't normally have other jobs. Normally all they do is they're the priest and they get the food and they're taken care of by the church. Like, you know that, right?
Somewhat, not like I'm familiar with that. Like there.
Yeah, that's how it was in the Old Testament. That's how it was in biblical times. The priest did all the works of God in the temple, and they would eat from the offerings, and they would have everything taken care of from the offerings and all that. They would not work or earn anything for themselves. In my opinion, that's why we don't do tithing anymore. I think that's why God changed it, but that's just my opinion. I don't have anything to back it up besides that fact. And the fact of it is that if everybody is supposed to be able to preach and teach, and everybody is supposed to be able to be ready, then what is the need of a specified priesthood? If we're all part of it. And if we're all part of it, then who's supposed to pay for the offerings? Who's supposed to take care of everyone? So I think part of the reason then the New Testament, we're not required to give 10%, it's just what you purpose in your heart, is because there is no necessity of a priesthood no more as a specified selected group that only does the work of God, because everybody is supposed to be doing God's work now. Women are supposed to be preaching, men are supposed to be preaching. The only thing that women can't do is when we're in the church, they can't be teaching or anything. They need to be silent. So, I mean, outside of like praise, like singing, but you get what I'm saying. But even with that, it's like they're supposed to be silent according to the Bible. So that's why I think that there is no tithing today. All right. So then with that in mind, does anybody else have any questions or comments? If not, then Chris, go ahead and read your section.
Got you. Continuing First Chronicles chapter 6, verses 2 through 6. And the sons of Kohath, Amram, Itzhar, and Hebron, and Uzziel, and the children of Amram, sorry, Aaron and Moses and Miriam, the sons of Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. Eleazar begat Phineas or Phinehas. Phinehas begat Abishua.
Yep, no for
That's crazy. And Abishua begat Buki, and Buki begat Utsi, and Utsi begat Sariah, and Sariah begat Meraioth. So in my section, we're just going down the lineage from the tribe of Levi.
close, but there is something of importance that was pointed out. Any standout verses or standout information that was in this section?
Only thing I could probably say was the mention of Moses.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Moses is truly the first leader of Israel when we think about it. Moses is the one who carried them away from Egypt. Aaron was the speaker for Moses because Moses felt he couldn't speak well. Miriam is a sister. So here we have one of the patriarchs of the religion. So I think that's always important. When you see someone that important, you need to point them out.
I got you. I didn't look through the definition to make sure it was the right one. But because I didn't, sometimes there are people with multiple names. I don't know that many.
But in the situation like this, what should you have done then?
Looked it right up.
Yeah. If you ever see something that's that stand out of a name, it's always good to check on it and see if it's the same person for that reason. I only know that it's the same person because there was only one Moses that we've read about throughout the entire Bible. I don't remember there being any other Moses at all, Old Testament or New. And to top it off, even if there was another, Moses was the only one that had a brother Aaron and a sister Miriam.
Okay, yeah, I had no idea about that.
Yeah. Now, there's an interesting part in here too that you wouldn't know about. Charles, any other interesting names that are pointed out in Chris's section?
I remember in verse 3, Abihu, he offered the strange fire that he wasn't supposed to, he did it wrong and God killed him.
Yep.
I think
Nadab and
Nadab
Abihu
was,
were the
yeah,
brothers.
yeah, it was two of them. And Miriam is the sister of Moses. I hope you guys get to go back and read this. When me and Matt read it, it like showed, what did we talk about? Miriam was talking about Moses' Ethiopian wife, if I'm not mistaken, right? Then she got struck with
Mm-hmm.
leprosy. But yeah,
Yep.
in that disrespect of talking about an Ethiopian woman, she got struck with leprosy. So did we talk about like the sign of like it could be used as an example of how somebody was
I don't
treated
think it
when
was
they,
because of talking about her. If I remember correctly, it's because she was questioning. Here, let me go back to it. I think it's because she was questioning whether or not she'd be able to be queen, not just about talking about being Ethiopian.
because I think it was Moses's separate wife, or I don't know if it was his first or second, or
It was like his second or third wife. Give me a second. This is why, in my opinion, we will always yeah, that's right. It's because he questioned the marriage of Moses to her, being a Cushite woman or Ethiopian woman. That's why she got it.
that I do remember too. Getting struck with leprosy.
Yeah, Numbers 12:10 to 16. Give me a second. Just want to double check this. Yeah, we're going way back to Numbers.
Yeah, it shows it in verse 1. Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman who he had married. Literally in the
Yep,
first verse.
exactly.
He
Now,
had
this
married an
goes in to
Ethiopian woman.
debunk something that's taught today. Let me get it about the way, and it has to do with that same subject of treating them differently from a different race. What is debunked that's taught today because of that? Chris.
I'm not 100% sure what you're getting at.
All right, so Miriam got struck with leprosy for questioning Moses's wife about whether or not she could even be his wife because she was Ethiopian. That's
Right.
why she got struck with leprosy. There's something that's taught today about history that is debunked because of that. What gets debunked because of that?
I honestly don't know what you're referring to. What's taught normally.
All right. If I say any more, I'll give the answer away. So let me give Charles a chance.
We said it a long time ago. It was so long since we
Mm-hmm.
talked about it, but wasn't it something about how people talk about the Bible's racist? Wasn't it something like that,
Yes.
or it's something like that?
Yes.
I've actually heard that. I've actually heard people say that before I came into this. Go ahead.
Exactly. There's a teaching among people who are anti-Christian that the Bible is racist and it was used to hold down black people. That's the whole origin of it. There's a couple debunks to this. For one, and you guys may not have known this, the oldest physical Bible that we have is actually from Ethiopia. Don't know if you guys knew that. And South African country as well. I think there's another one there. That's where it first came from. Yeah. So and that's the physical Bible. We've had the stories in different ways, but the first put together Bible was there. It's actually started in African origins, not in Caucasian origins for the physical Bible. All the stories were existing before that, but the Bible being put together all together, that's where that started. So that debunks it for one. But for two, we have examples where people were trying to be racist in the Bible. Numbers, what we just talked about with Miriam, was one of them. And what was God's decision? What did he do when somebody did that? He gave her leprosy. He gave Miriam a deadly disease because she had questioned a marriage just because of the race of the woman. So that's why that debunks that. Because if the Bible allowed for racism, it wouldn't condemn racism in such a manner to give somebody diseases as a punishment. You see what I'm saying, Chris?
Yeah, I see you.
All right. And then the Nadab and Abihu. Yeah, Abihu. Nadab and Abihu are the examples of giving fire, strange offering to the Lord. God wanted offerings, but he didn't want sacrifices to replace obedience. That's true too. But in this specific subject, Nadab and Abihu wanted to gave strange fire to the Lord, which strange just means different. That's all it means. Like a stranger is someone who's from a different land or from a different area. That's all strange means, is different. So they gave different fire than what God had asked and called for. And then guess what happened to them, Chris?
Uh, I would just say something bad. Either they died or something got struck with a disease.
You said what?
You said they offered a strange fire, right?
Yeah.
And I remember you saying something earlier about sacrifice instead of obedience, if I heard you correctly.
No. You didn't hear the context though. I said people do bring up about like God desires obedience before sacrifice. That's true, but that's not the subject here. That's what I said. Here we had where they offered strange fire to God, fire that God had not called or asked for. So, what do you think happened when they offered the strange fire?
Yeah, so I was saying, so either something bad happened to them, or uh, maybe they
Okay,
got
I'm
sick.
I'm gonna I'm gonna say a little correction on that. If you don't know, okay, say I don't know, but saying something bad happened is not an answer. That's like if I asked you, like, I said, what color is the sky right now? And you were to go outside and you said it's some color.
Right. That's why I followed
Yeah.
with they got sick or something. I don't know if you're, but I did say.
Oh, I didn't hear the got sick part. Got sick is a good try. The something bad happened. I heard the something bad happened. I didn't hear the got sick part. So yeah, no, they did not get sick, but good try on that answer. Charles, what happened to Nadab and Abihu?
They got they died by the fire. I
Yeah,
brought it up earlier.
yep. Chris, they got consumed by the fire itself.
Did we read, because the Behu do sound familiar. We read about that already, didn't we?
Yes, we have. That's why I gave you a shot to see if you can remember.
Oh my gosh, I do remember that. As soon as he said,
Yep. Nadab and Abihu tried to offer strange fire to God. And because of that, because it wasn't what God had asked for, he consumed them with fire. This is one of the examples that I use all the time when I'm explaining to people that you don't get to serve God how you want to. They're one of the perfect examples of this. Because we have examples in the Bible all over the place, Old Testament and New, where somebody wanted to serve God their own way instead of the way that God required or called. And every single time that I can remember where they did this, the person either died immediately in a painful death or they got struck with some disease or something. It was never a small punishment. It was never a slap on the wrist. And so when we look at it from that perspective, and we see when people say, "Oh, yeah, I'm Christian," my church is a Bible believing church. But when we get to a Bible verse that contradicts what your churches believe, you don't go on our Bible study. You stick with that false church. Well, if that's the case, it's so stupid and funny at the same interesting, not funny, stupid and interesting at the same time because people are going to sit here praising God all the way down to the lake of fire, thinking because they worshiped him in a way they felt comfortable that that's okay. Well, nowhere in the Bible does that show that's okay, and there's nowhere in the Bible that gives a better example of how bad it is than Nadab and Abihu trying to offer a strange fire to God and got consumed by the fire itself and died. All right. Now, does anybody else have any comments or questions before we go to the final section? Now would be the time to raise your hand. Then go ahead, Charles.
All right, I'll be reading. If I can get this thing to work, I'll be reading First Chronicles 6, verses 7 to 10. Let me
Did
go
you say
ahead and give it a
Crontex?
couple. Chris, did you hear me say Crontex?
I think so. I thought it cut off real quick. Well, yeah, came back.
It might have cut off. I'm gonna redo it
I
then.
thought you said first
Oh,
Crontex.
all right, let me redo
This
it.
is not the Chronic, Charles. It's the Chronicles.
First Chronicles chapter 6, verses 7 to 10. All right, verse 7. Merioth begot Amariah, and Amariah begot Ahitub, and Ahitub begot Zadok, and Zadok begot Ahimaaz, and Ahimaaz begot Azariah, and Azariah begot Johanan, and Johanan begot. Am I blind? I've seen the name too many times. My bad. It threw me off seeing the name again. I was really tripping right now. Let me finish verse 10 and I'll explain why. And Johanan begot Azariah. He it is that executed the priest's office in the temple that Solomon built in Jerusalem. Now, the reason why I said it is because I said Azariah too many times. And I'm like, why do I keep reading Azariah, Azariah, Azariah? And I'm reading and I'm looking at it. And I'm like, okay, cool. It does say it that many times. I was just tripping.
Yeah, yeah. You weren't tripping, bro. It said it a lot of times.
Too many times. I had to question myself. Like, am I seeing? Like, what is my eyes doing? My mind
Oh
playing
no, no,
tricks
no.
on me.
Imagine how I felt when I read the same four verses in a row and they repeated. Now you know what I felt like.
Man, it's been a while since it did
Yeah, yeah.
that.
Oh, just a heads up,
But
everybody. When the Bible wants to emphasize something, there has been a couple times where it literally repeats the verse another time. It'll have you stuck thinking like, didn't I just read this? I know I didn't just read this.
it makes you feel like it's a typo.
Yeah, but really it's just pointing out emphasis.
So on my section, I'm starting off with
Arayo.
Marioth begot Mario had Ahitub had Zadok had Ahimaaz had Azariah, and Azariah had Johanan, and then Johanan went ahead and had a son named
Yohanan.
Johanan.
An easier way to
Johanan.
say that is Yohanan.
Johanan. Okay, Johanan.
Yeah. It's easier
And
to
then
pronounce like that.
Yep. And then Johanan, he ended up having Azariah. trying to create some juniors out here. But after I read the Azariah part, it said in parentheses, he it is that executed the priest's office in the temple that Solomon built in Jerusalem. Now, in executed, it's not the Call of Duty executed or the stuff you see on the TVs and the cartoons and stuff. I'm taking this as the executed, like General Corporal Matthew executed command and did surveillance in Syria. That's how I'm taking it as he, instead of me saying executed, he did the things of the priest's office in the temple that Solomon had built that we spent like 20 chapters talking about Solomon's temple that he built in Jerusalem.
I wouldn't say that he performed it. I mean, executed the priest's office in the temple. I it could be that, but it could be that he established it. It could be either side. Because if he
Okay.
executed the priest's office, that could either mean, and it both are possible in this context, it could either mean that he did the job or that he set up how to do the job. Like he established who was going to be in place and everything that needed to be taken care of.
Yeah, no, so I have to bring it up as possibility is one of those two because that those two fall in line and
Yeah,
executed. Like when I brought up Corporal Matthew executed the command and watch over Syria, that doesn't just mean you were
just
surveying Syria.
reminded me of a
You may have done some things in Syria to as part of your as part of executing the command. So, but go ahead. What were you gonna
exactly.
say?
You just reminded me of a song type chant type military thing that they used to say when I was over at the church of the Victory Road church, not Victory Road, Victory Outreach. There was a song type, I'm a soldier in the army of the Lord.
That's a song.
It was a chant that
That's
it was
funny.
like it was like I'm a soldier in the army of the Lord. I'm a soldier in the army. Like that's it. Go ahead, Chris.
It's crazy word. We need to first. We need to get that song banned or that chant.
He said you're gonna get banned.
Yeah,
Bro,
we
that
need to
chant, like,
eradicate
I'm
that.
not gonna lie. Look, it was kind of dumb, but at the same time, when you got like 40 men doing that chant together, that is
Oh,
crazy. Like, it's really empowering, but I don't know if it's that much of it's the chant itself as much as I think it is just it's the men that are chanting together as in unison.
I
Like,
feel it.
oh, because it just makes me think of like military movies and stuff like that, where it's literally like they're running, they're going through their wartime setup, and they're doing a chant in unison to build up that mental strength.
Right.
So
But yeah,
yeah,
that wasn't the point I meant to say. I was gonna say about earlier how you said how you and Charles would kind of try to see which way the executed mean, because like I did look
yeah.
it up, and it kind of seems like he was just performing the duties of the high priest. Too. That's what I'm getting from the Strongs and whatnot.
Well, that's a definite possibility. That's the more likely. But remember, the big thing we've always said, and I say this every time, never say something as confirmed unless we know for sure that it is. The most likely definition of this is that he was the priest at that time. He did the job of the priest at that time. But it's not the only option. The other option is that he established how the priests were to be in the Solomon's temple. Now, if it is the established part, and we read later on that that happened, and not just that he was the priest at the time, you've now created a contradiction that didn't need to be there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you're not wrong. It is the most likely one, but the way it's phrased, it could go either way on that. Now, those are the only two options. Based on the context, there's no way that this means executed like killed. That's a non-option. But it could mean that he established, or it could mean that he was the priest at the time. But the reason why him being the priest at the time is less likely is because why didn't it just say that he was the priest in the temple that Solomon built?
I get what you're saying.
See, because we've had where it said that they were the priests before, right?
Right.
But we didn't read of Azariah. And to top it off, it didn't just say the words that he was the priest. It said he is that executed the priest office in the temple. So that sounds more like he was in charge of the priest rather than him being the priest himself because of that.
Gotcha.
But so the more likely, based on the context, is not that he's the priest, but that he ran the priest office. But at the same time, it's still not confirmed and it could be either way. So it still need to be said as a possibility. So the original statement of him being the priest being more likely, I had to take that back just off the quick read. The other one's more likely based on that, taking previous verses into account. Now then, does anybody else have any comments or questions before we pray it out? All right, then go ahead, Charles, since you're the last reader.
All right. Everybody go ahead and bow your heads. Father, thank you for giving us a study today. This was good practice for us. We got into some people that reminded us of older chapters, of older situations, and of older lessons. I pray that when we get into the next Bible study, it's the same way. We get into names that remind us of older lessons that we had went through already, and things that names we can practice with, and context we may be able to practice with as well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Man.
Amen. All right, y'all. Have a wonderful night.